WarsawJS.
If you are here, you've probably already seen that page or at least that Facebook fan page. But did you know that according to Colorblind Awareness Organization, 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women see them differently because of color blindness? For some of them, our well-known pictures from the previous slides may look like this. More surprising may be the fact that color blindness does not necessarily mean seeing the world in grayscale. In fact, it's the least common case, and the majority of people with color vision deficiencies will see our webpage this or like this. Today, I want to show you some tips thanks to which you can build the internet available for everyone, not only for people struggling with color blindness, but also with other vision, motion, or cognitive deficiencies. But before we will go there, let me shortly introduce myself. As it was said, I'm Dominika Zając, and I am programmer from education, profession, and passion. Currently, I work as a software engineer in Qualtrics in Krakow. But apart from my work, I'm conducting IT-related workshops and lectures, especially for kids and tech newbies. I'm also a huge fan of singing and theater, so if you want to talk about that topic, just ping me during after party and we can talk about them. But in the meantime, let's go back to accessibility. What is accessibility, you may ask? Simply speaking, accessibility in IT is a way of building our software in a way it's available for everyone, including people with vision, motion, or cognitive deficiencies. We should remember that some people are using a computer differently than majority of us. They use assistive technologies like screen readers or special navigation keyboards, but it also applies for people who just need a bigger font on our page or broke their arm and they cannot use traditional keyboard and mouse the same way as always because they have only one hand available. If it's so important, why accessibility is so difficult and non-popular topic among developers? The most frequently repeated answers include lack of knowledge, why it's important, lack of resources, time or manpower to improve existing solutions, and lack of knowledge how to quantify and fix issues connected with accessibility. And today I will try to address all of those concerns. So let's start with stepping into our users' shoes. We can talk, we can read, we can discuss a lot, but the experiences are the way we are learning the most efficiently. It's why I want to propose to you 3 simple experiments to better understand problems your users are struggling with every day. First of all, if you are from Warsaw, I strongly encourage you to visiting Invisible exhibition. It's a special place where you can feel like a blind person. You come into total darkness and have to conduct some normal daily tasks like preparing the meal in the kitchen. And you have to be surprised how difficult daily tasks can be without sight. It was super eye-opening experience for me, not to mention small panic attack when the lights went out. So I strongly recommend you just visiting that place and try to understand how the world without sight may look like. Unfortunately, I know that visiting exhibition may be difficult, especially in pandemic times. It's why the other experiments are ready to perform just from your bed. First of them, emulating vision deficiencies using your Chrome DevTools. First of all, you can open your Chrome browser, go to Chrome Developer Tools, 3 dots visible here on the right side, later on More Tools, rendering. Well, if voila, we have a section called Emulate Vision Deficiencies. Here we have an option to simulate blurred vision or different types of color blindness. And the same page may look completely different for people who have some kind of color blindness. It's worth to checking, can you read all the text? Or maybe somewhere contrast ratio is not enough. If everything is visible, definitely worth checking. The last experiment, just unplug your mouse. Can discharged mouse have something to do with accessibility? Surprisingly, yes. Many users with motor with motor disabilities or using screen readers rely on keyboard navigation. And we have to ask ourselves, does our web page fully support that? Where's the focus after dismissing the model? Can you access all actionable items on your page? Spoiler alert, keyboard navigation is not as easy as you may think. Okay, we went into our user's shoes. Let's talk about issues we might notice there. Of course, the list I will present today is not exhaustive. It's impossible to fit all of them into one presentation, but I chose the most popular ones. Hope it will be a great starting point for you. So let's go there. First of all, incorrect DOM structure. We have so many HTML tags, different headings, inputs, checkbox, buttons, etc. But unfortunately, as developers, we have also tendency to create our own widgets based only on styled divs. And they are beautiful, but screen readers cannot understand them correctly. Using the correct HTML tag is super important. However, you don't have to give up all your custom elements. Assign them correct roles using role attribute. Add tab index to interactive elements to ensure they can be focused. Check keyboard navigation in more complicated widgets. For example, if you can navigate over lists using arrows on your keyboard. When you use native HTML elements, you have it for free. So next time, before creating your new super awesome widget only on divs, think twice. Maybe it can be done easier. The next problem, insufficient contrast ratio. Fortunately, those issues can be quite easy to detect by automated tools. On the slide, you can see example from Chrome DevTools. When I inspect my button element, I see that pop-up with info about styling. And here in accessibility section, I see label contrast and that orange icon informing me that something is wrong with my element. When I go to the same element in the Style tab and click Color Picker, I will see more icons informing me that something is incorrect, but also I have here a button with reload icon. What is nice, when I click that button, Chrome DevTools will propose to me a new color, which will have sufficient contrast ratio with background, but it will be as close to the initial one as possible. So it's really nice way to fix problems connected with insufficient contrast color ratio. Okay, next one. Sometimes it's hard to understand something without additional information. It's why we have footnotes in books or cards in museum with a description of item. The same story may occur on your site, especially if we remove the visual part. Remember to add alternative text to your images describing what is visible on them, and you can use alt tag for that on images or correct title in SVG elements. If it's only decorative, you can leave them empty or add area hidden through property. Also, you can read a little about tags area label and area descriptions. Thanks to them, you can add some context to your pictures or other elements for screen reader users. The last problem I want to talk about today is broken or missing keyboard navigation. It's connected with that experiment with unplugging your mouse. Trust me, it's not as trivial as you may think. What are the problems? When you cannot access some interactive elements via keyboard, or you are in trap after dismissing the modal and have no idea where focus currently is. The riskiest places are common custom components, buttons without support for keyboard navigation, modals, or places where you add or remove something. It's also a good practice to add a special link at the beginning of your site to allow users to skip to the main content and omit the initial menu with navigation. Some tools like Slack are also adding special F6 shortcut to easily iterate over sections. Remember that keyboard navigation is used not only by screen readers users, so displaying some visual tips like marking focused area is also a good option. Okay. We were talking about issues. We stepped for a while into our user's shoes. Let's talk how to include accessibility in process. Because it's important to remember that accessibility is not one-time action. So you cannot, just add accessibility, mark task in Jira as done, closed, and for the end of your life, you are accessible, or for the end of life of your software. We have to remember that each change to code may cause some accessibility problems. And we have to create some system to ensure that our software will be always available for everyone. How to do so? First of all, automatic audits, the fastest and the easiest starting point. Here you have example without installing anything. As you can see, you can go to Chrome browser, go to developer tools. You may notice I'm a huge fan of them, and go to Lighthouse tab. Here we are checking accessibility, checkpoint, and generate report. After some seconds, we will see something like that. In the top, we have overall score, and that score is between 1 and 100. The score below 50 is bad, 51, 89, medium, and the 90, 100 is the score we want to achieve. But it's not all. The more important part is below that score. It's the list of failing elements on our web page. As you can see, I have not only info about failing audits, but also about past and not applicable on our web page. So when you are just starting your development with accessibility, it's also worth to check what is important, what you should consider when you are preparing your next web page. Okay, let's talk about that failing parts, because they are the most important and the most interesting, probably. As you can see here, I have a shorter version, but I can also expand details. And that details look like this. So I have short info, what is wrong and what should be improved on my web page. But I have also linked to the article where I can learn more. I can understand why it's so important or how I can fix it. And what is super, super nice, I have also a list of all failing elements on my page. So in my example, button. When I click on them, I will be redirected to Styles tab, so I can fix it the same way as I showed you previously. Super easy way to detect some problems on your page and do some first accessibility check without installing anything. If you want to use more advanced reports, you can just use some tools like Axe Tools, visible on the screen. It's also for free. You can add it as an extension to your browser. And as you can see, I have also report with list of failing elements. I have a number of total issues on my page. I have references for them. And I have also info, is it critical or minor? So which items should be fixed first. Here you can see the link, so probably you can check that tool on your own. When we are talking about improving the process, we cannot forget about code review. Having the second pair of eyes is always useful. So if you are using some template checklist for code review on GitHub or GitLab, it's really nice to add an entry for accessibility there, or just ask your friend to take care on those aspects. But remember, don't waste developer time for things that can be done automatically. How? For example, using unit test. On the screen, you can see a unit test, accessibility unit test, written with just Axe, and it's super short. As you may see, it's only getting my element and checking if it has any violation. You can define your own rules. You can also exclude some rules if, in your opinion, are not important. And your test suite will fail and inform you when something is wrong before development. Super useful thing. If you want to detect some problems even faster, you can also add a Slint plugin to your code. And thanks to that, problems with accessibility will be marked during development process in your favorite editor. Here we have example from IntelliJ, but it also works for other modern code editors. And as you can see, when you try doing something strange, like adding a tab index on non-interactive element, the incorrect property will be underlined in red. And when you hover over it, you will receive more info what is incorrect. So we can fix problems with accessibility during development even faster than unit tests. Unfortunately, we have to remember that even the smartest automation cannot detect all accessibility problems. We have to remember to perform manual tests regularly. Involve in them people with different disabilities, if possible. We have to also remember to test not only happy paths, but also more complicated scenarios. Recall the experiments from the beginning. Could you call your page accessible, having them in mind? In the end, I have a small appeal for you. Be nice. Remember about people who are using computer differently than you. Together, we can make the internet place where everyone feels welcomed. And I wish it's a future of web development. So yeah, just be nice and think about accessibility during your development process. If you want to stay in touch, you may see my social links on the page. I will be also on after party, so we can talk about it. And thank you very much for having me. If you have any questions, it's great time to ask them.
So thank you very much for this amazing talk, and I believe that personally I learned a lot. I didn't know that you can define this your own has no violations. It's really easy to look at a test like this. So that's absolutely amazing, and maybe it's going to encourage me to write such tests. So can you tell me something more about it? How what kind of violations can you define this way?
Sure, there are a lot of predefined rules, and in majority of cases you don't have to define your own rules, just use one of predefined. So it may check, for example, tab indexes on your interactive elements. It may check if all your LI elements are inside all or UL elements. So this is it correct structure. It may check also if, I don't know, many things. It's super difficult to tell them from the head.
Yeah,
but yeah, I will send you a link to documentation so you can check it there.
Fantastic. So can you also share your slides with us so that we can access them from our WarsawJS Slack, because, well, everyone actually sits there. There is a question from Gondrone. How do you convince stakeholders that investing in accessibility is worth it? What if your organization deems it unimportant and happens to only employ abled managers?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I believe it's difficult to convince stakeholders about it, but we have to remember that law enforces us to make our software available for everyone, and there are more and more law regulations about that. So first of all, if you cannot explain that you may have more users and your users are more happy, and your software is better not only for the people with disabilities, because thanks to fixes for accessibility, it's also more accessible for people without them. So yeah, if that, let's say, normal arguments are not enough for your stakeholders, think about law and the changes will coming also in Poland. So yeah.
Okay, so that's a tough argument, especially using against the person who is your employer, actually my question was actually also the same when I thought thinking about this, because generally it generates some more costs, to be honest, right? To create such accessible app, because it needs more testing, more work, more effort in general. However, if there will be some kind of regulations that the violation of that can be, for example, fined, or I don't know, maybe there will be some other kind of. I know that Google, for example, indexes lower pages which are not accessible, so at least that. On the other hand, I feel also that this ethics subject fits in well, because creating inaccessible websites is just unethical. It's bad. It's not good, right? So we can have a codex, we can have certain rules that maybe we can follow as programmers. Do you think would you apply such codex in your team?
We haven't got it called as a codex. We have some rules. We have that unit test or some plugins, so they enforce us. But it was never a question that should we add accessibility. And it's also worth mentioning that when you build your new plugins or new modules with accessibility in mind from the beginning, from the sketch, it's not really big cost. Because when you remember about, for example, using correct DOM structure, correct HTML tags, it's really, I believe it's the same effort as a normal development. So yeah, when you remember about it from the very beginning, it's not so expensive as you might think.
Okay. All right. So thanks for mentioning this. I can't see any more questions, so we will ask you something more during. Oh, there is a question. Krzysztof Łokaj. Maybe good idea is to steal developer stakeholders' regular mouse every month to make them aware of accessibility problems.
And I really love that idea because, you know, I was talking a lot about that unplugging mouse, and many of my friends told me, come on, girl, it's stupid. Yeah, it will work the same. And later on, you unplug your mouse and you see that, come on, you have a problem. You cannot just surf through. Maybe Google is okay with that, yeah, but you cannot read your favorite page, and it's so difficult to buy a ticket or do something without a mouse. So yeah, I love that idea. When we come back to the office, I will try regular stealing mouses for my friends. Okay. Thank you, Krzysztof, for that.
Yeah, I really love that experiment that you presented. That turning it off could be really surprised how many bugs we can discover on our website that we can't actually click the login, for example, button without the mouse or enter. All right, so thanks a lot, Dominika. I think I know that Andrei has his slide working. So thanks for being here and with us. And I hope you're going to stay on our networking. So and Krzysztof also suggests that maybe stealing screens could be a good idea.
Can't wait for after party for more ideas about it. But yeah, thank you very much and see you.